The evening was supposed to be a celebration. I could feel it in my bones. The excitement of the culinary gala, the hum of the crowd, the clink of glasses. For the past year, I had poured everything I had into this moment. My time, my passion, my heart. Tonight, I had been nominated for the most prestigious culinary award of my career, and Celeste, my wife, was by my side, looking as perfect as ever. My name is Daniel, I'm 35 years old, and I live in Chicago. The air at the gala was thick with anticipation, like everyone knew something big was about to happen. As I stood in my black tie, watching the other chefs chat and laugh, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of pride and nerves. This award could change everything for me. It could mean fame, opportunities, the next big step in my career. I could already picture the feature in the magazine, the interviews, the rise in reputation. All I had to do was win. But even more important, tonight felt like a reward for everything Celeste and I had built together. It was our victory. We had worked so hard to get here, both of us. Celeste, radiant in her deep red dress, stood beside me with a smile that could melt any room. She was everything to me. We had met years ago in a kitchen, both of us struggling, both of us hungry for success. And now, here we were, on the edge of something huge together. I glanced over at her, feeling my chest swell with love and admiration. "Daniel," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "You've got this. You're going to win tonight. You've earned it." I smiled back, grateful for her constant support. Then, like a shadow in the corner of my eye, I saw him. Julian. He was hard to miss, flamboyant, dramatic, and known for stirring up trouble. A food critic with an eye for drama, he was always at the center of things, making waves wherever he went. He was standing near the bar, laughing a little too loudly, gesturing wildly. But then something caught my attention. It wasn't Julian's laugh or his usual over-the-top antics that grabbed me. It was Celeste. She was talking to him, her head slightly tilted, laughing too. The two of them were standing close. Too close. I watched as her hand brushed his arm lightly, a touch that seemed more intimate than necessary. The way their bodies leaned toward each other, their faces so close, like they were sharing some secret. It was just a moment, maybe a few seconds, but it was enough for a knot to form in my stomach. I told myself I was overthinking it. She was just being friendly. Celeste had always been gracious with everyone, but a voice in the back of my head, a quiet whisper of doubt, wouldn't let me shake the feeling. Something was off, and the longer I stared at the two of them, the worse the sensation became. I tried to focus on the award ceremony ahead, but the unease crept under my skin. My eyes kept drifting back to Celeste and Julian, who were still talking, still standing too close. I didn't like it. My instincts were telling me to walk over there, to pull her away, to ask if everything was all right. But I stayed rooted to my spot, a mix of confusion and discomfort tightening my chest. Then, the moment that shifted everything happened. The announcement of the awards was getting closer, and I caught a glimpse of Celeste and Julian once again. This time, they were no longer talking. Celeste was standing beside him as he held her hand, guiding her through the crowd toward the exit. My heart dropped. I hadn't even noticed when she slipped away from me. I watched as the two of them left, walking side by side into the night, their laughter still ringing in my ears. It was too much. My mind was racing, but I couldn't make sense of it. I should have been happy, excited about the award. But now, all I could think about was them, alone together, outside of the gala, out of my reach. I stood there, frozen, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Betrayal. I barely slept that night. The hours seemed to stretch endlessly, each minute filled with the image of Celeste walking away with Julian, disappearing into the night like it was no big deal. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, the way they stood so close, the easy laugh they shared, the way her hand brushed against his like it was nothing. I didn't know what to think, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Celeste returned home, almost like nothing had happened. She stepped through the door, carrying that same confident air, the same smile that had once made me feel like the luckiest guy alive. She looked radiant as always, and yet, to me, she felt like a stranger. "Morning, babe," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Great night, huh?" I stared at her. The words caught in my throat, but I managed to speak. "Did you have a good time with Julian?" Her eyes flickered, but she quickly masked it with a light laugh. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. I saw you with him last night. You left the gala with him." Her face froze for a moment, then softened into that practiced innocent look she used when she wanted to downplay something. Daniel, you're overreacting. It was just a conversation, and Julian's a friend. You know that. You've met him, right? I crossed my arms, fighting the wave of hurt that surged through me. It didn't look like just a conversation. It looked like something more. She sighed dramatically, setting down her purse on the kitchen counter. Oh, please. I was just having some fun. We were talking about food, work, Nothing serious. The dismissive way she spoke stung, like she didn't take my feelings into account at all. Nothing serious? You left the gala with him, Celeste. You were standing there, laughing, touching him. It felt personal. She shot me a look, one of those looks that made me feel small, like I was being ridiculous. Daniel, seriously, it wasn't like that. Julian's just a little, well, you know him. He's over the top, but he's harmless. You're making it into something it's not. I felt the anger rising in me, but I kept it in check. Am I? Because the way I see it, you chose to leave with him. And I don't even know why you would do that if it was just a friendly chat. It feels like there's more to it. Ugh, Daniel, you're being so boring. You used to have fun. I used to be attracted to that side of you. She rolled her eyes, shaking her head like I was the one who had done something wrong. Now you're just so serious all the time. You've changed. It's like I'm married to a different person. The words hit me harder than I expected. The idea that I wasn't fun anymore, that the very essence of who I was, my energy, my passion, my drive, wasn't enough for her anymore. It crushed me. Am I really the boring one here, Celeste? My voice was strained. Or are you the one who's bored because you keep pushing me away and running towards someone else whenever I'm not? Exciting enough for you. She narrowed her eyes, the edge in her voice sharpening. That's not fair. I'm not running to Julian. I'm just having a bit of fun. You can't expect me to be serious all the time. I'm allowed to enjoy myself. And what about me, Celeste? I asked, my voice cracking. What about our life, our relationship? Am I just supposed to be here, standing in the background, paying for everything, supporting you, while you chase whatever gets your attention? She laughed softly, her eyes cold. Oh, don't make it sound so dramatic. You know I love you. I've always loved you. But this is just how things are, right? We've been in this routine for years. It's not bad, but it's not exactly thrilling either. Her words cut deeper than anything else she'd said. So that's it? I'm just not thrilling anymore? Celeste's expression hardened, and she shrugged nonchalantly. You've lost your spark, Daniel. That's all. It's not a big deal. It's just how life goes. People change. We change. I shook my head, struggling to keep my emotions in check. You're right. You've changed, and I don't even know who you are anymore. For a long moment, she didn't respond. She just stood there, staring at me, her lips tight, like she was waiting for me to back down, to apologize for making things awkward, but I couldn't. Not anymore. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice thick with hurt. You don't see what this is doing to me. You don't see that you've already made up your mind, about Julian, about us. Don't be so melodramatic, she snapped, stepping toward me, her voice dropping to something closer to a hiss. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm just telling you that I'm allowed to enjoy myself. You should learn to do the same. Her words felt like an insult, and I took a step back. Maybe I'm just tired of being the one who's always expected to hold everything together. Maybe I'm tired of being the one who never gets anything back. Fine, she said, throwing her hands up in exasperation. If you're so unhappy, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we need a break. I don't know. I stared at her, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The years of compromises, of holding on, of being there, and all I could think was that none of it mattered anymore, not to her. I turned and walked away. I didn't care if she followed. I didn't care if she called after me. I was done. For the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I could keep pretending everything was fine. The night dragged on after Celeste left the gala with Julian. I kept replaying everything, her touch, the way she laughed, how easily she slipped away from me and into his world. I couldn't shake it. The unease crawled through my veins like poison. When I finally returned home, I was numb. I could hear her in the other room, her heels clicking on the floor, her voice light and casual, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. Celeste walked in, her face a picture of calm, the same radiant smile she always wore. You still up? She asked, hanging her coat on the hook. It was a great night, huh? I didn't answer immediately. I just stared at her, the words I wanted to say hanging in the air. Everything about her felt distant, and I couldn't stand the silence between us. I had to say something, even if it would only make things worse. You left with him, Celeste. Her face flickered with something, guilt, but she quickly masked it. What are you talking about? Julian, I told you we were just talking. Nothing more. I clenched my fists, trying to hold on to whatever was left of my composure. It didn't look like just talking. You were touching him, laughing with him, and then you left with him. You left me there. It didn't seem innocent. She sighed, the edge in her voice thick with impatience. Daniel, you're overthinking it. It wasn't like that. Julian's just... Well, Julian, he's dramatic. You know that. I was just having a bit of fun. You take everything so seriously. It's exhausting. Exhausting. Those words hit me harder than I expected. Exhausting? Is that what I am now? Just exhausting? Celeste's eyes narrowed slightly, like she didn't understand why I was making such a big deal of it. You've been acting so serious lately, Daniel. It's like I don't even know who you are anymore. It's like you've lost your spark. I miss the old you, the fun, spontaneous guy I married. Now you're just, well, boring. Boring. I felt the sting of her words, sharp and cold. It was like a slap to the face, but I wasn't sure if it was because of the insult or because of the finality in her tone. She wasn't just saying it to hurt me. She was saying it like it was truth. I'm boring because I care about us, Celeste. I care about our marriage. She looked away, crossing her arms over her chest. It's not like that. It's just, you've changed. You don't even notice me anymore. You're so caught up in this idea of what we're supposed to be that you've forgotten how to live. I'm allowed to enjoy myself too, you know. You didn't seem to have a problem enjoying yourself with Julian, I snapped before I could stop myself. Is that what this is? Is that what you need from me? For me to stop caring so I can let you have all the fun you want? She looked at me like I was being dramatic, like I was making something out of nothing. I'm not asking for you to change, Daniel. I'm just asking you to let me breathe a little. You know, live, have fun. The words left me hollow. So, that's it? You just want to have fun, and I'm supposed to sit here and watch you do it? While what? I just sit here being boring? You're not boring, she said dismissively, though I could hear the lack of conviction in her voice. You just need to lighten up. We've been in this routine for so long. It's stale. It's like we're just going through the motions. I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. So, is that it? Our whole life, everything we built, it's just stale to you now? She didn't respond at first. She looked away, as though she couldn't even bear to meet my gaze. I'm just saying, things can't stay the same forever. People change, Daniel. And maybe this just isn't it anymore. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating, but the tears wouldn't come. You're right. Maybe this isn't it anymore. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. They hung in the air like a death sentence. The reality of it all was hitting me, and I didn't know how to process it. My entire world felt like it was shifting, and I wasn't sure if I was standing on solid ground anymore. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to punch a wall, but I did nothing. I stood there, motionless, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Her voice came again, quieter this time. You're overreacting. We can talk about this later, okay? But I didn't want to talk anymore. I didn't want to fight for something that felt like it was already slipping through my fingers. I couldn't stand the way she was dismissing me, making me feel like I was the problem, the same way I had always felt, but worse now. I turned and walked away, heading for the bedroom. I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her half-hearted attempts at making everything seem fine. It wasn't fine. None of this was fine. I heard her call after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. And as I closed the door behind me, I felt something break inside me. The room was empty when I moved in. The space above Marco's Bakery in Logan Square had all the basics. An old couch that looked like it had seen better days, a small kitchenette that barely passed as functional, and a bed tucked into the corner. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The silence was deafening at first. It echoed through the walls, reminding me of what I'd left behind. The noise of my marriage, the constant hum of Celeste's discontent, the weight of the life I'd been forced to build for someone else's expectations. I had nowhere else to go. After the confrontation, after everything that had been said, it had become clear that there was no place left for me in the home I had shared with Celeste. She wasn't going to fight for me, and frankly, I wasn't sure I wanted her to. My life had turned into a hollow shell, one I had crafted for the both of us, and now it was gone. I was left standing on my own, in a space that felt strangely foreign. The first few days were hard. The loneliness pressed down on me, every corner of the room reminding me of my failure, of everything that had slipped away. I couldn't escape the memories of the past few months, of Celeste's dismissal of everything I had tried to hold on to. Every time I stood in front of the mirror, I saw someone who had stopped recognizing himself. But slowly, as the days stretched on, the silence began to settle into something else. It became a refuge, no one to answer to, no expectations hanging over me. I started to make small changes. I cleaned the space, rearranged the furniture, and even hung up a few photos of my travels, things I hadn't seen in years. I tried to cook a little, though I kept screwing up the simplest things. My hands felt shaky, the rhythm of baking just beyond my reach. The dough was wrong, the measurements felt off. The tension in my chest made it harder to focus, and the moment I tried to forget, the moment I tried to bake for the joy of it, I found myself thinking of Celeste, of her laugh with Julian, of the way she had so easily turned her back on me. I was drowning in my own failure. I was consumed by it, but I couldn't seem to stop. A few days passed, and I started trying again. I kneaded the dough, slower this time, listening to the sounds of the bakery below as Marco worked. His rhythm became my rhythm. His peace became my peace. I didn't realize how much I missed it, the simplicity of doing something just for the sake of it, without anyone needing something from me, without anyone judging me. Slowly, the dough began to feel right under my fingertips. It was like my hands remembered the motion of making something good, something that could be mine. Baking, I realized, was still in me. I hadn't lost it. I just had to learn to trust myself again. Every day I spent hours in the kitchen. I made small personal batches, bread, pastries, things I knew how to make by heart. And with each batch, something within me began to shift. The past few years with Celeste hadn't just stolen my confidence, it had taken my love for the craft itself. I had gotten so caught up in proving myself to her, in holding on to something that wasn't real, that I had lost sight of the one thing that had always grounded me, my passion for baking. One morning, Marco came upstairs to check in on me. He knocked lightly before stepping in. "How's it going up here, man?" I wiped my hands on my apron and gave him a smile that felt genuine. "Better, I'm getting there." He walked over to the counter, eyeing the freshly baked bread with a nod. "This looks good. You've got the rhythm back." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, I think I do." Marco grinned, looking more relaxed than I had seen him in a while. "I've got a pop-up event next week, Daniel. You in? I could use your help." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by the offer. "You want me to work a pop-up?" "Why not? You're a good baker, and I need someone who can take the reins for a few hours. I think it could help you get back into the swing of things. Plus, it'll be fun. You won't be alone." I hesitated. The idea of being around people, cooking for them, felt intimidating. But as I thought about it, I realized that I had been hiding in this apartment, afraid to confront what came next. Maybe this was my chance. Maybe this was the way forward. "All right," I said, making up my mind. "I'll do it. I'll help." Marco smiled, clapping me on the shoulder. "Good choice, man. Let's see what you got." And with that, I felt the tiniest spark of something familiar inside me. Maybe it was just the excitement of a new challenge, or maybe it was the hope that something could finally change for the better. Either way, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. It had been a few weeks since I moved into the small studio above Marco's bakery, and though the silence still felt like a weight on my shoulders, it was slowly becoming my space. Every day I spent hours baking, but not with the same intensity or drive as I once had. Now, it was for myself. I focused less on perfection and more on finding a rhythm that felt natural. The chaos of the past was behind me, and I was learning to rebuild, piece by piece. One Saturday morning, I decided to take a break from my routine and visit the local farmer's market. I needed fresh ingredients, and walking through the market always inspired me. The vibrant colors of fruits and vegetables, the crisp air, and the simple joy of talking to local vendors made me feel more grounded. I made my way through the rows of stalls, exchanging pleasantries with the vendors I recognized when something caught my attention. A small stand piled high with jars of spices, herbs, and dried flowers stood at the far end of the market. The sign above read, "Mia's Spices," in handwritten chalk, and something about the way it was arranged, neat but natural, intrigued me. I walked over, admiring the variety of spices. A small woman with a sharp yet inviting smile stood behind the counter. She had short, messy hair, and her apron was stained with what looked like powdered sugar and cinnamon. She looked familiar, and then it clicked. She was a former pastry chef who had transitioned to selling spices. I'd heard of her but hadn't met her in person before. "Can I help you with anything?" she asked, her voice warm and easy. I paused, momentarily distracted by the complex blend of scents wafting from the jars. "I've been baking a lot lately," I admitted, slightly embarrassed. "But I've only been using the usual spices. I feel like I'm stuck in a rut." Mia smiled knowingly. "It's easy to get stuck in a routine. You'd be surprised how a single new ingredient can change the whole flavor of a dish. You ever try smoked paprika in your chocolate cake?" I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Smoked paprika? In cake?" "Trust me," she said, leaning in a little closer. "It adds a depth of flavor you wouldn't expect. It's not just for savory dishes." Her enthusiasm was contagious. She handed me a small jar, its contents a dark, rich red. "Go on, give it a try. It'll be a game changer." I took the jar from her, intrigued by her confidence. "I'll give it a shot," I said, smiling. Over the next hour, we talked about baking, her transition from pastry chef to spice vendor, her love for experimenting with flavors, and her thoughts on the evolving food scene in the city. She had a unique perspective, one that focused on creativity rather than trends, and it felt like a breath of fresh air. We exchanged recipes, ideas, and stories about our experiences in the culinary world. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of inspiration. The pressure I had been carrying from my past life with Celeste, the expectations I had built around myself, faded away. Mia's presence, her excitement about flavors, made me feel like I could explore again, like I could be creative without the weight of needing approval. As we continued talking, I found myself opening up more than I had in years. "I've been trying to find my groove again," I confessed, looking at the jars of spices. "Baking used to be my thing, my passion, but I've kind of lost touch with it. Too much focus on making a name for myself, I guess." She nodded, understanding. "It happens. Sometimes, when you're trying to please everyone else, you forget why you started doing something in the first place." That hit me hard. I had been so caught up in the expectations of my past life, of my marriage, my career, of pleasing everyone but myself. I had lost the joy I once found in baking. I had lost myself in trying to make others happy, trying to live up to some perfect idea of who I should be. Mia handed me another jar, this one filled with a vibrant yellow powder. "This is saffron. A little goes a long way, but it can make the simplest dish feel luxurious. Try it with a citrus cake, or even a simple bread. You won't regret it." I smiled, accepting the jar. "Thank you. I think I'll do just that." As I left the market, a small bag of spices in hand, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time in months, I felt like I was doing something for myself, not to impress Celeste, not to meet anyone's expectations, just because I wanted to. I was rediscovering the joy of baking, and maybe, just maybe, I was rediscovering myself. That evening, I tried the smoked paprika in a small batch of chocolate cake. The result was subtle, but there was a complexity to it that I hadn't expected. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of something I had made. I wasn't just following a recipe or meeting someone else's standards. I was experimenting, creating for the sake of creating, and it felt right. As I sat down with a slice of cake and a cup of tea, I realized I didn't miss Celeste. Not in the way I had thought I would. I missed who I was before everything, before the manipulation, before the constant need for approval, before the marriage that had slowly eroded my sense of self. With Mia's help, I was starting to find that version of myself again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I hadn't expected to hear from Celeste again, but the message appeared on my phone, as if by fate, a lifeline to something I no longer recognized. "Daniel, we need to talk. I'm sorry for last night. It was a mistake with Julian. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a long time. My finger hovered over the keys, but I didn't reply. Instead, I waited. The message lingered in my thoughts, and as much as I wanted to ignore it, I knew I would have to face her again. Not for closure, but to see if there was any trace of the woman I had loved in her words. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe near the edge of the city. The place was quiet, almost too quiet, and as I walked inside, I saw her sitting at a corner table. She was dressed as she always was, perfectly put together, her hair sleek and pulled back. She looked like she hadn't missed a beat since the last time I'd seen her, as though nothing had changed, but everything had changed. She looked up when I sat down, her eyes scanning my face, searching for something. Maybe an apology, maybe some hint of softness that would excuse her actions. "I'm sorry, Daniel," she started, the words coming out like they were rehearsed. "I never meant to hurt you." I stayed silent, staring at her. Every part of me wanted to call her out, to tell her how much her indifference had destroyed me, but I couldn't, not yet. "I shouldn't have let it get to that point," she continued, her voice softer now, the hint of guilt still there, but just barely. "But you have to understand, Julian was just someone I turned to. It was nothing. I made a mistake." Her words felt hollow. "A mistake," I repeated, a bitter taste in my mouth. "Is that how you see it? A mistake?" She nodded, but the hesitation in her eyes told me she wasn't entirely convinced. "Yes, Daniel, it was a mistake, and I've been thinking about it, about us. I know I've been distant, but we can fix it. I want us to fix it." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that it wasn't that simple, but all I could do was sit there, numb. "You really think we can fix it?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. "You left the gala with him. You went with him, Celeste. That wasn't a mistake. You chose him over me." She flinched at the words, but her response came quickly, like she had rehearsed it in her head. "I didn't choose him, Daniel. I needed something different. Our life, our routine, it felt like it was falling apart. And Julian, he was just there. He listened. You stopped noticing me. I needed someone who saw me, who felt me." I felt a sharp pain in my chest at her words. The truth she was telling, her version of the truth, was so far from mine. It was like we had been living in two separate worlds the entire time. "You're blaming me?" I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You're blaming me for not noticing you? Celeste, I noticed every day. But you were always looking for something else, always wanting more than I could give." She shook her head, eyes flickering with something that wasn't quite remorse, but more like irritation. "I don't need you to lecture me, Daniel. You just don't get it. You're so focused on your own success that you forgot about us. You forgot about me." I blinked, shocked. "I forgot about you? I've been there, Celeste, every step of the way. I built my life for us, for this. And yet, it's never been enough. You've been so wrapped up in your own dissatisfaction that nothing I did could make a difference." The bitterness in my voice was unmistakable, but I didn't care. She had pushed me to this point, and now everything I had ever felt seemed to pour out in waves, crashing over me. "I gave you everything I could, and it wasn't enough, because it wasn't about me, was it? It was about your own emptiness, your need for validation. And when I couldn't give you that, you went looking for it in Julian." Her face hardened as I spoke, and I saw something shift in her expression. "You think you're the only one who's been trying? You think I haven't been trying to keep this marriage together? But you're always so focused on your damn career. You're always too busy with work to even see me." I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted the pain to end, to stop reliving every moment that had led me here, at this table, with this woman who had been everything to me, but had left me with nothing in return. "I don't know what to say anymore, Celeste," I muttered, the words barely a whisper. "Maybe I'm not who you need. Maybe you never needed me at all." The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. Celeste stared at me, her expression unreadable, and for the first time, I realized she didn't care. She never had. "I'm done," I finally said, my voice firm, though my insides were shaking. "I'm done trying to fix something that's already broken." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw something resembling regret flicker across her face. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a hard, indifferent stare. "So that's it? Just like that? You're walking away?" "Yes," I said, standing up slowly. "I'm walking away. It's over." I walked out of the cafe without looking back, not caring whether she followed or not. The weight of the decision pressed on me, but I felt something else too. Relief. For the first time in months, I was free. The pop-up event was chaotic, but in the best way possible. It was one of those nights where everything seemed to be in flux, but I could feel the energy buzzing through me as Marco, the other staff, and I hustled behind the scenes, pulling together pastry trays, refreshing the counters, and making sure Everything was just right for the crowd. Marco had invited me to help out with the event, and it felt like the right thing to do, an escape, a distraction from the weight of the past few months. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about a single thing. There was no Celeste. No looming questions about what had happened to my marriage. I didn't even feel the pressure to prove anything. I was simply here, doing what I loved, creating something from nothing. And I could finally breathe. The bakery was buzzing with energy. People were laughing, chatting, and picking out pastries from the display case. Marco had set up a small area for live music, which made the atmosphere even more lively. The night had turned into an impromptu celebration, with customers snapping photos and enjoying the treats, talking about the food like it was the highlight of the evening. I found myself smiling. I wasn't just taking orders or sticking to routine. I was engaged in the chaos, but it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt right. The quiet joy of watching people savor my work was the first real satisfaction I'd felt in a long time. By the time the event was wrapping up, I realized I hadn't once thought about what was going on in my life outside of this. I was present. And that felt good. Marco clapped me on the back as we cleaned up the last few crumbs from the counters. "Good work tonight, Daniel. You've still got it. You're back in your element." His words felt like a small victory, but more than that, they made me feel like I belonged again. I wasn't just someone tied to a past I couldn't escape. I was here, I was doing something, and I was good at it. "I was just following your lead," I said, wiping down the counter. He smiled, throwing a towel over his shoulder. "Nah, man. You took charge tonight. I'll be honest, everything's been a little off at the bakery lately, but tonight you really brought it. I'm impressed." I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was starting to find my rhythm again, but it was still new. The emptiness that had settled over me after everything with Celeste was still there, somewhere deep inside, but it wasn't so loud anymore. The joy of baking, of doing something that made me feel alive, was beginning to drown it out. "Well," Marco continued, his voice more casual now, "I'm going to need some help with the bakery this weekend. You up for it?" I looked at him, surprised by the offer. "You mean like running the bakery for the weekend?" "Yeah," Marco said, nodding. "It'll be fun. I need to take care of some personal stuff, and I trust you. You've got this." The idea felt daunting at first. It was one thing to help out during a pop-up event, but running the bakery for an entire weekend. I hadn't done something like that in a long time, and the weight of responsibility was enough to make my stomach flutter. But something inside me stirred. This was my chance to get back into the culinary world on my terms, without the expectations that had come with my marriage, without the need for anyone's approval. I took a deep breath, meeting Marco's gaze. "Yeah, I think I'm ready for it." Marco's face broke into a grin. "That's what I like to hear. It's all yours this weekend. Don't worry, I'll be around to help you get settled." As I walked out of the bakery that night, my mind was spinning with the possibilities. I could already picture myself in the kitchen, fully in charge, making decisions, experimenting with new flavors. No one else's expectations hovering over me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could hear my own voice in the kitchen. I didn't need validation. I didn't need anyone's approval. I was baking for myself, and that felt like the most honest thing I'd done in a long time. The next few days were filled with preparation. Marco showed me the ins and outs of running the shop, but the more I worked, the more I realized I didn't need much guidance. I had been here before. The recipes, the timing, the flow of the kitchen, they were all second nature to me. And as the weekend approached, I found myself waking up with a sense of purpose I hadn't had in years. On Saturday morning, the bakery opened, and I was alone behind the counter, orchestrating the kitchen as customers came and went. I felt a calm settle over me. The chaos of the morning rush was something I had always thrived in. Flour, sugar, eggs, everything in its place, everything moving smoothly. At some point, I realized I wasn't just filling the hours to pass the time. I wasn't trying to forget the past. I was present. I was doing something I loved, something that was mine, and that was enough. The day ended with a feeling I hadn't had in a long time. Satisfaction. I hadn't been looking for it, but it found me. I wasn't thinking about Celeste. I wasn't thinking about the hurt or the disappointment. I was focused on the rhythm of the kitchen, the rhythm of my own life, and for the first time, I was truly living for myself. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Mia and I decided to take a walk through the neighborhood. The city felt peaceful for once. The air still warm from the afternoon sun, but cool enough to be comfortable. We walked slowly, side by side, talking about everything and nothing. It was one of those moments where time seemed to stretch, and I found myself feeling lighter, like I was beginning to live in a world where I wasn't weighed down by the past. We strolled past the local park, the small coffee shop where I used to meet with clients, and the bakery where I'd been spending more and more of my time. Everything seemed different now, familiar, but with a new sense of freedom I hadn't realized I was missing until recently. That's when I saw her, Celeste. She was standing across the street, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. She was dressed in one of her usual outfits, sharp, fashionable, effortless. Her laugh rang out, the sound so carefree, so distant from the tension and heartache I remembered. She looked happy, and that was it. I knew deep down that she had moved on. She had found a new life without me in it, just as I was starting to build mine without her. I froze for a second, but Mia's gentle hand on my arm brought me back to the present. "It's okay," she said softly, her voice steady and understanding. She must have seen the recognition in my eyes, the recognition of a past I no longer had any control over. I didn't respond at first. My mind was reeling, but for the first time, there was no anger, no bitterness. Just a quiet realization. Celeste wasn't my life anymore. She was a chapter in a book I had already closed. I watched as Celeste's laughter continued, her head thrown back in a carefree, almost triumphant way. She was with someone else now, someone who wasn't me, and that fact didn't hurt like I thought it would. In a strange way, it felt like the final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. This was the end. I stood there, my heart strangely calm, my breath steady. And then Celeste turned around. For a split second, our eyes met. But it wasn't the look I'd been afraid of. It wasn't filled with regret or longing. It was as if we were two strangers, momentarily acknowledging each other before moving on. She didn't say anything. She didn't stop to talk. She just turned back to the man beside her, who had wrapped an arm around her waist. I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, just a quiet acceptance. I was done. Mia, who had been standing beside me the entire time, squeezed my hand. "You're free, Daniel." I nodded slowly. I think I've always been free. I just didn't realize it until now. We continued walking hand in hand, as if nothing had ever changed. The weight of my past seemed lighter with each step, and the future, once unclear and filled with pain, now stretched out before me, full of possibility. The woman I had once built my world around no longer held any power over me. Celeste had become a fleeting memory, a moment I could now look back on without pain. Mia's support was quiet but strong, and as we walked down the street, I felt something inside me shift. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking behind me. I was looking forward. I was looking at a life I could shape on my own, without anyone else telling me who I should be. The past was gone, and I was ready to embrace what came next. The small studio above Marco's bakery had transformed from a temporary refuge to a home. A place where I was allowed to breathe again, to think, to live. My mornings were spent baking, no longer defined by anyone else's expectations or the ghosts of my past. There was a peace to it now, a simplicity that I had been craving without even realizing it. I'd been baking in silence, creating breads, pastries, cakes, whatever came to mind, as long as it felt right. The work was familiar, comforting, but it wasn't just the baking that had changed. I had changed. In the past few months, I had slowly, almost imperceptibly, shed the weight of my life with Celeste. Her absence, once a gaping hole in my chest, had become a part of the quiet hum of my routine. I spent hours experimenting with different textures, flavors, and techniques. The old pressure was gone, the pressure to please, to impress, to chase after something that would never come. Instead, I was baking for myself. No one was waiting for me to make the perfect pastry. No one was judging my every move, and for the first time, I felt a sense of true freedom in it. Marco continued to support me, always offering a gentle word or a helpful suggestion, but he never tried to push me. He let me find my own pace, my own voice again. I was rediscovering the joy I had once found in this work, the joy I had lost somewhere along the way. But it wasn't just the work that had changed. Mia had become a steady presence in my life, quiet, comforting, understanding. We spent more time together, our connection deepening with every conversation. She challenged my views on baking, showed me spices and flavors I had never considered, and in turn, I found myself thinking about food in a completely new way. Mia was different, refreshing, full of ideas, but never pushing me to go faster, to do more. She just let me be. And in that space, I found the calm I needed to heal. One Saturday afternoon, Marco asked if I would take the lead at the bakery again for another weekend pop-up. I hesitated for a moment. Taking charge wasn't something I had thought I was ready for. But then I realized I was ready. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone anymore. It wasn't about impressing anyone or seeking approval. It was about doing what I loved for the joy of it, without the weight of expectations, without the pressure of a past that had tried to define me. The event was chaotic, but in the best way. I watched as customers filled the bakery, tasting the pastries, laughing with friends, and taking their time to enjoy the food. The energy was contagious, and I felt myself slipping into the rhythm of the kitchen effortlessly. My hands moved with confidence. My mind focused solely on the work in front of me. For hours, it was just me, the pastries, and the simple joy of doing something I loved. At the end of the event, Marco came up to me, clapping me on the back. "You nailed it, man. You really did." I smiled, but it wasn't just about the success of the event. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't felt in years. I was proud of myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. The bakery, Marco's business, had always been more than just a job for me. It was a place that reminded me of who I was before all the distractions, before everything got tangled in Celeste's need for validation, and my need to keep up. But now, it was more than that. It was a home, a place of calm, of creativity, and of peace. It was a place where I felt alive. I stood there, looking around at the empty space, the remnants of a busy day, and realized something else. I no longer felt burdened by the pain of the past. I had let go of the anger, the resentment, and the fear that had clung to me for so long. I had learned to accept what had happened, but I wasn't letting it define me anymore. And then, as if on cue, Mia entered the bakery, a soft smile on her face as she walked over to me. She didn't say anything, just stood by my side, offering the quiet support I had come to appreciate. She had become a steady presence in my life, without any pressure or need for anything from me except my company. I reached out and took her hand, the gesture simple but grounding. "I think I'm finally starting to get it," I said quietly. "I'm starting to understand what it means to live for myself." Mia gave me a soft squeeze, her eyes warm with understanding. "You've always known, Daniel. You just had to remember." It felt like the first time I had truly understood that. For years, I had been living someone else's version of my life. But now, I was finally carving out my own path. No more worrying about the past. No more second-guessing my worth. Just forward. Just living. As the day ended and the bakery quieted down, I realized that I was no longer held captive by the pain of the past. I had finally found peace. The future, whatever it held, was mine to shape. And that feeling of being free was worth everything I had been through. I looked at Mia, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of contentment that wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. It was mine. And with her by my side, I knew that this was just the beginning.